The world is a beautiful but challenging place to live. And let's face it, life hits hard sometimes. So if you find your hopes and dreams and mental well-being needs a boost, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to Inspire Us with your host, J. Paul Nadeau, a former hostage negotiator turned motivational speaker and best-selling author. And now, here's your host, J. Paul Nadeau.
All right, awesome. Well, today we're joined by a dear friend of mine, Paul. Paul and I met and connected a few years ago on an app called Clubhouse, and I really enjoyed the conversations we used to have around motivation, personal development, and negotiation. And as part of this whole thing that I'm doing right now is just to invite experts to share their background, share their gift, and then we'll get into some tactical persuasion techniques as to what this is about. So Paul, why don't you introduce us to yourself and what your background is, and tell us a little about you.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for having me on. I'm Paul Nadeau, and I'm in Toronto, Canada. I'm a former hostage negotiator. I was an international peacekeeper. I worked in the Special Victims Unit as a detective. And I've had quite an outstanding career that required me to serve people and to interact with people from all walks of life and experiencing all kinds of things. I was a peacekeeper in the Middle East during the Iraq War. One of my jobs was really to engage people and to connect with people and to influence people and to do it for the right intentions, to really help people get through some of the struggles that they were getting through. This involved victims of crime, people who were just going about their lives, and even criminals. And as it turns out, I had some influence on a couple of terrorists as well. So my background was one that I think a lot of people could probably associate to and connect with, is that I was an abused kid. I was a severely abused kid. And it was not easy getting through my childhood, but I do believe that I became the person I am as a result of the abuse that I experienced. And I think a lot of successful people can say the same, is that what motivated them to become the servants that they have become in this world was because they had to get through tough struggles as well. So I do believe that this experience happened for me and not just to me. And we talk about that a lot. And you and I used to talk about this in our clubhouse room, is that when you look back at your life and you think, oh, that happened to me, well, think about what it might have done for you too. So that's a little bit about my background and who I am.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know that about your childhood and stuff like that. And I grew up in the same kind of childhood. And like you said, it's I've always had this thing where I never wanted to be a victim. I always wanted to be the victor. And so I never associated so much, I used that as character definition for myself, so to speak, where I'm going to use this as a superpower to and use it as a way to engage and make sense of the world around me and stuff like that. So you said you did a hostage negotiation and then you were doing peacekeeping, and I definitely want to get into the terrorist story because you've got a wild terrorist story. But tell me a little bit about the hostage negotiation background.
Excuse me. Because of my background, I'm going to refer to that a lot because it really developed me into the person I am. Mm-hmm. At the age of 13 and 14, my father sent me out to get a job so I could pay room and board. And he expected a certain amount of money back then. And I had to go out and get a job. I wasn't 16. And at the time, there was an age limit. You started work at 16 if it was working for a restaurant or working for a store. They wouldn't hire a 13 or 14-year-old kid like me. So I had to do a little bit of, stretching the truth, let's put it that way. And I also had to interact with adults and sell myself, and convince the adults that I was dealing with that I was a good choice for them. that I could do a good job. So I learned very early on how to negotiate and how to present myself and how to show my strengths. And I carried this into the police department and began to treat the clients, I called them clients, the people that I engaged with were my clients. As I said earlier during the interview, they were, victims of crime. They were just your average individuals going about their lives, or they were criminals. And I would treat my clients the way that I wanted to be treated myself. Two of the greatest lessons I ever learned in the police department early on, and I probably knew this when I was younger, but it made sense to me when I joined the police department. These two lessons are this. Number one, we are more similar than we are different. Is that we all laugh, love, and bleed in the same way. Our religion may be different. Color of our skin may be different. We have different experiences, born in different places. But boy, when it comes down to feelings, to relationships, to, even the color of our blood, we're more similar than we are different, which meant that I could actually put myself in the shoes or try to put myself in the shoes of that person and ask myself, what would I do in this situation? What would I want to hear from this man, this police officer? How would I want to be approached in this situation? So we are more similar than we are different was one of the biggest lessons that I learned, and I used it, and it brought about extremely wonderful results. The second one is that you get what you give. And this is a very simple little idea, is that if I give you dignity and respect, I am likely to get dignity and respect back from you. If I raise my finger, my middle finger at you and shout at you in anger, I'm likely to get that in return as well, or something even worse. So those two lessons taught me how to connect with human beings and how to establish a rapport with them. And in doing that, it brought about many successes. I got many confessions from criminals. My life was saved more than once by bad guys. And so bad guys saved me from getting beatings because, hey, we know him. You're not going to touch him. And even in the Middle East, a terrorist saved my life when I was about to be killed. So when you take a look at those two things, guys, anybody listening to this, and Rush, thank you for allowing me to say this, but the two lessons, man, is that you get what you give, and we are more similar than we are different. Try imagining what it would be like if you were the person that you're talking to. And that may be a loved one. Maybe you're disagreeing with a loved one. Imagine how they would like to be treated. The golden rule is that we treat others the way that we would like to be treated ourselves. And then there's the platinum rule, treat others the way that they would like to be treated. And this requires some focus, some concentration, some empathy, and all the things that we used to talk about in Clubhouse, and that even before this interview, when you and I were just chatting before the video came on, we were talking about these very things. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a little bit about my background. And I tend to talk too much, Raj. So if I do, just say, hey, Nadeau, just.
No, this is great. This is great. I think that I love that, and I totally 100% agree. I think, like, for people listening though, like, it's easy to be like somebody on camera talking about these experiences and stuff like that, but how do you keep your cool? Because obviously, like, these are like not like small minor situations, but sometimes there might be a lot of like anger, emotions, everything like that, and you've got to regulate that to come off very calm and collected. And in order to be compassionate and have empathy, like, it doesn't just like, you go from like a high 10 on anger to like being like, and like pointing a finger at somebody and being like getting the answer. You can't do that. How do you maintain emotional regularity, I guess?
It comes from personal intention. Like, what is your intention? What do you see? What is unfolding in front of you? And where do you see the outcome? What outcome do you want from this? So I have to focus not so much on the outcome, but on what I'm doing in the moment. And I teach this in negotiations. I teach this in sales. We don't think about making the sale or having somebody sign the contract. We focus on what is developing and happening in front of us. And we have to maintain our own cool. We have to focus on the things that we can control. What is it that I can control in this moment? If I'm going to elevate my voice in this anger situation, then what am I doing? I'm just matching or going above. And is that going to get me the results that I want? Like, am I just going to be the bigger bully in this whole thing? No, I've got to focus on myself, take those breaths and say, wait a minute. I'm looking for this outcome. How can I get to this outcome? I can regulate myself. And when somebody's yelling and screaming, Raj, like, this is a technique you can try. When somebody's, and I've used this many times, when somebody's yelling, you speak softer. You speak softer, and you speak almost at a whisper, and they will want to hear what you have to say. And it comes down to ego too. It comes down to an ego play. Is like, wait a minute, he's not shouting. What is he saying? And it's just something that's ingrained in us that we want to hear what the other person is saying. So again, it comes down to really taking some time to understand yourself, to say, okay, am I a peacekeeper in these situations? Like, whatever job you may have, some jobs require you to maintain that cool in some big situations. And I will say right now, as a cop, there were times where I had to elevate above the person that I was dealing with in order to de-escalate. My job was to de-escalate. And I've learned many techniques and tactics to de-escalate a violent or a crisis situation. And it comes down again to understanding yourself, to having the right intention, and to using those techniques, which we all can learn. We can all learn how to be peacekeepers. We have to learn how to be a peacekeeper with ourselves as well. Is that I cannot allow my emotions to have the best of me, then I am not in control. Take Control of Your Life is one of my first books. It was originally called Hostage to Myself, and then HarperCollins picked it up and they called it Take Control of Your Life. And I think that this is one of the master keys, is that we do take control of our lives. Who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? How am I going to interact with other human beings? Am I intentional? Do I care about the people that I'm going to be engaging with? No matter what the business is, you're always going to be engaging with people. That could be your family, your friends, and you're going to have to regulate yourself and take control of your own emotions, your own life. And once we understand how to do that, it gets better. It's like a muscle. When we start to learn these techniques, these breathing techniques, and I'm speaking to you, and I know that you know a lot about meditation and the importance of being consistent in the development, in your personal development, is that we can go in life without taking any time to build ourselves or to become better people. We could do that. But is that living a fulfilling life? I'm going to say, for me, it wouldn't be. I need to be a better version of myself tomorrow than I am today. And I do that by understanding myself and by learning and moving forward. I don't just stay in a place.
Do you have a daily practice or regiment?
I do. Yeah. In the morning, I will take a few moments to be grateful. Gratitude is a superpower. And it doesn't have to take long. I'm grateful for, number one, I woke up. How many people around the globe didn't wake up? How many people passed away during the night? Some in their sleep and some quite violently. I woke up, so I thank the universe, my God, whatever that may be. I thank that I have a roof over my head, that I have people in my life. I have 2 wonderful daughters. I've got a granddaughter. I've got brothers and sisters. I've got friends. I've got opportunities. And so I take a few moments, maybe a minute or two, just to be grateful. And then I use mantras. Like, today is going to be a good day. Today is going to be a fantastic day. I start my day off with intention. This is how my day is going to go. Why? Because I'm taking control of my life. I'm taking control of this day. I'm not going to let anybody piss me off. I'm not going to let anybody interfere. I'm going to create opportunities. I'm going to invite. I'm going to have a positive energy that's going to flow through me. And it is the idea, this pronoia. Are you familiar with the term pronoia?
No.
This is something that my friend Glenn Morshower, and you know Glenn, he speaks about quite a bit. Paranoia is the idea or the thought that the world is conspiring against you. Its brother is pronoia, to believe that
Oh,
the world
interesting.
is, yes, to believe that the world is conspiring for you. And
Mm.
so this is part of my morning routine and say, hey, guess what? Something amazing is going to happen today. Something's coming into my life. And believe it or not, we transfer this energy. We have this glow about us. We have auras around us. People feel the energy that we have. And when they feel that you've got this positive, like, I am in control of my life, it's not being cocky, it's being confident. And when you walk in with this aura, with this energy, people feel it. You ever been in a party? You know, lots of people in a party, and you see somebody who walks in and they just seem to have the it factor.
Yeah, exactly.
People are immediately, it's because they are transmitting a high value energy. And in this high value energy, what are we looking for? We're looking to match that energy or hopefully have that kind of energy. And that's why we are drawn to these kind of people. But if you walk into that party and, or that engagement, whatever it is, and you have low value, it's like, I really don't want to be here. I just, you know what? I had to come and I just, and you're not going to be seen. In fact, you're going to drift off to a corner, and the only people who are going to find you are people who are on the same energy. Somebody who says, well, I don't want to be here either. And that's the kind of energy that you're going to get. And so I that's part of my morning ritual is high value energy, dude. Today, wonderful things are going to happen. And that's what I do. And I do believe that if we practice this kind of thing, and I teach this, I'm a motivational speaker as well. And I talk about this even in negotiations and sales, is just have this confidence about yourself, have this and be ready to serve others, because it's just truly amazing. And so those are a few of the things I do for my morning ritual.
It's interesting because it sounds so simple, and it's when I think about this, it's like obviously you have to have a meditation practice, you have to have like a gratitude practice, and I love that pronoia. I mean, I've heard it in a different way, but like when you said it, I was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. And it's like imagine taking energy like that's something so simple, and it's like literally like 3-4 things you do in the morning, but then now you can go in and like do hostage negotiations from that. You can go and diffuse terrorists and make them your friends to get out of situations. Like, okay, like let's go into that now, right? Like you take that ritual and you've used that to like literally diffuse terrorists. Like tell me about this terrorist story and like how you adapted the skills to do it.
Absolutely. Well, like anything, it doesn't matter what you're going to be doing as a job or as a hobby or something. You've got to become good at it. You got to start to learn how to do it, and then just build on what you can't be a hostage negotiator in a day. It's not like, hey, today I'm going to be a hostage negotiator. Well, what do you know about conflict resolution? What do you know about dealing with people emotionally? How do you do that? Well, as I said, my background really prepared me in many ways to connect with people, to, again, those two valuable lessons that I spoke of, being getting what you give. And if I tell somebody I'm going to give them dignity and respect, I'm there to work with them. I'm there to help them. And that's one of the things that hostage negotiators do. A lot of people are familiar with Chris Voss. Chris Voss and I, we learn the same techniques. We were taught the same things. Gary Nessner, who's another big negotiator, a friend of mine, a former FBI negotiator, we learn the same techniques. One of the first things that we say in a hostage negotiation is, my name is Paul, so we want to personalize it. And what we ask for the other person's name, and hopefully they're willing to give it, and many of them are not at first. But we need to take care of business. One of the first things that we say is, I'm here to help. Those words, I'm here to help. Think about that in sales. I'm here to help. I'm not here to sell. I'm not here to, to tie everything up and get you to sign on the dot. I'm here to help. What is it that I can do for you? And this is what hostage negotiators understand, is that we're dealing with emotional people. and people who are usually in crisis. And imagine this to you, Raj, and to all you viewers out there. Most hostage incidents were not planned. It's not like the hostage taker was thinking, you know, in 2 weeks from now, I'm going to rob a store, and it's going to go really bad. It'll go bad, and the place is going to be surrounded by cops, and I'm going to take a hostage. Yeah, that's what I'm going to. It's not like that happened. Like they don't call us 2 weeks in advance and say, yeah, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be taking some hostages, so you might get ready. We don't know what's going to happen. And
So
they
it doesn't
don't.
happen like the movies where they plan it out and they're like, obviously, like they don't want it to go bad, but like they
Oh, it
don't.
does happen that way. It
Okay.
absolutely does happen that way. It's, an alarm gets tripped, or somebody sees them, or somebody locks a door on them, or they
Okay.
panic. They are, and this is the majority of the hostage situations, unless it's a hostage for sale. Like professional hostage takers in different countries. They'll take hostages and they'll, okay, $1 million and you get buddy back. That kind of stuff. Well, we're not talking
That's
about
more
that.
like a kidnapping.
That's a kidnapping. That is
Yeah.
pirates. That's all. But that is hostage taking. That is where you send in a hostage negotiator to negotiate a deal, because that's what we're dealing with. They're willing to give that person over for a price. It could be religiously motivated too. Then we have to get into that. But let's talk about the 90%, I'd say, 80 to 90% of the ones that happen by circumstance. And then we get there. My name is Paul. I'm here to help. Are you okay? Is everybody else okay? Does anybody need any medical assistance? Tell me what's going on. How can I help you? And that's when the negotiation begins. In the Middle East, did you want me to talk about the terrorist situation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Okay.
Sounds exciting.
Well, I'm alive here today and speaking to you because my life was actually saved by a terrorist. Spoken of this many times, and to me, it was just another day at work. I happened to be on a peacekeeping mission. After 9/11, Iraq had war, and they were at war. And we sent, when I say we, Canadians sent peacekeepers around the globe. And one of the places we sent peacekeepers to was Jordan, just outside of Iraq. And we didn't send soldiers. Canada decided that they weren't going to send soldiers to the war. They were going to send peacekeepers. And I was chosen to be one of those peacekeepers. And my job was to go to one of the largest police academies in the world. It was actually the largest police academy. It was built just outside of Iraq in the desert, that could accommodate 3,000 police cadets, Iraqi police cadets, every 8 weeks. So we got them by the busload of young men, older men, anywhere between the ages of 16 and even 65. And they had their limitations. Like they said, well, we don't want anybody under the age of 18 and we don't want anybody over the age of 50. But Iraq was in such desperate need of police cadets that they were scooping them up off the street pretty much and sending them to the academy, because they wanted these men to come back and to help police their broken country, in a country that was at war. And that was
This
no
was
easy
after the
task.
fall of Saddam.
This was while Saddam was still in
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I believe I was there when Saddam died. I'm not quite sure, but the whole thing was that because of the enormous demand of police cadets at this academy, we would get Sunnis, Shiites, and we would also get terrorists. So terrorists would infiltrate the academy quite easily. How did they do it? They wore a police uniform. They signed up using a false name. And no background checks were done. They couldn't vet these men. It's like, can you carry a gun? Yep. Do you want to serve your country? Yep. Okay, you're going to Jordan and you're going to be trained. And so we were training. The academy was training terrorists in explosives, hand-to-hand combat, investigation techniques, police techniques, all these kind of things. This is quite the story. I actually wrote a film script on it, and it's going to be made into a movie.
I can't wait.
But when I was there, originally my assignment was to teach a classroom on criminal investigations and human rights. And so I had a class of about 50 to 60 police cadets every 2 weeks. And I had a couple of instructors from the UK that worked with me and one from the US. And I was in charge of the classroom, and they had other classrooms, but we all taught these cadets. When I got there, oh man, I thought I was going to be killed because I had heard so many bad things on CNN that if you went to the Middle East, they were just going to kill you. And, and you hear these bad things, right? And you get this image of what these people, and when I say these people, the people in the Middle East are all like, they're all going to kill me. When you get there, you realize, man, was I ever misinformed? Some beautiful, wonderful people here. And my God, they are so friendly and so welcoming. And so it just kind of messes with your mind, but it was a great mess. And when I got to the classroom, began to imagine again, as a police officer, I was an experienced police officer and I knew how to teach. And I thought to myself, those two lessons. Number one, you get what you give, and we're more similar than we are different. How would I want to be treated by an instructor when my country is at war, when I've left my family for 8 weeks and I may not have ever left my family for even a day, when I'm lonely, when I'm frightened, when I'm terrified, and I'm in this academy and some men are getting raped in the academy, Sunnis and Shiites are fighting, there are terrorists here. How would I like to be treated by this instructor who's going to teach me something, and I don't even want to be here? I want to be home. So you start to think, man, all right, this is how I'm going to start my classrooms. Hi, my name is Paul. I am here to treat you with dignity and respect. I'm not here to tell you anything. I'm here to share my experiences with you. And I would hope that in these next 2 weeks that we enjoy our time together and that we share our experiences and we just learn and have fun. And that's what I would like to do. And so I did this, and it was remarkable because I began to build a rapport very early on with the cadets in my classroom. And imagine this too. When they got to my classroom at 8 o'clock in the morning, they had already been up for about 4 hours because they were awakened around 4 a.m. to do an hour of drill, to get ready for class, to do this, to do that. And by the time they got to my class, they were already exhausted. I had to make it fun. I'm an actor, so I had to be very, very energetic and challenging. And come on, Raj, get up here. You're going to be the policeman today. You're going to play the role of policeman. I want you to arrest me. And so it was, that kind of energy. And about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I had them from 8 to 4. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I thought, these guys, they're going to be, they're so exhausted. So I came up with this idea. American Idol was quite popular and still is, but we also had a version of that in Canada. It was called Canadian Idol, obviously. And so I thought, you know what might be fun? And this hit me very early on. It'd be fun to ask the classroom if anybody knows how to sing, because I'm thinking they probably do. And so, I'm thinking they do. And so I started this, and I'd say, anybody here know how to sing or tell stories? Duh. The cadets, we have Sunni Shiites and terrorists in a classroom here. They've just been asked, does anybody know how to sing? And this was what I got. And so,
oh, really?
Yes, I got a couple of hands go up every time. This is the first day, got a couple of hands come up. After that, hands were coming up all over the place. And boy, did they know how to sing, Raj. Did they? And those, we had water, these 5-gallon blue jugs, we went through tons of them in a day because we're in the desert, right? And they were drinking water, and the empty jugs were left at the back, and a couple of the cadets would pick up the empty jugs and they would start to play drums in rhythm with the singers. I tell you, man, I didn't understand a word because it was all in Arabic and I had a language assistant, but boy, did we have some fun. And we just enjoyed, and I could see everybody laughing. And when you imagine that for a moment, you've got Sunni Shiites and terrorists in a classroom, singing and dancing and enjoying it, is that no walls. There were no walls that separated us.
Wow.
What brought us together was
Did you know at the time that there were potential terrorists in the group?
we were warned. We
Oh,
were
really?
warned.
Wow, okay.
Yes, we were warned going in. Is that we knew that they were there, and we were told up front before being deployed. I went to the RCMP. There was a 2-week training, and they said, boys, you're going to be going in, and there's going to be Sunnis, Shiites, and terrorists. And we are doing everything that we possibly can to identify the terrorists and to extract the terrorists and repatriate the terrorists, but they're going to be there. And so watch yourself, because some of them are gunning for you. And that's going to be their intention, is to learn police techniques, but their intention is also going to be to kill you. And so you'd better be on the lookout.
But you knew going in that like the threat not necessarily is coming from the outside. The threat is there with you, and you had to like still maintain your composure the entire time with the threat of like you can get shanked around the corner if you're not watching, kind of thing.
Yep, you hit the nail on the head, my friend.
Yeah.
That's exactly. And you know this going in as a peacekeeper or as a soldier. You know that every moment that you are out there serving for the greater good, that at any instant, even those police officers, the firemen, the emergency workers that we have, all those wonderful, wonderful people know that they could be shanked, that they could fall into a trap, that they could die at any instant. But this is something that you commit to deal with.
Were there any incidents?
There were several beatings and almost killings. And because of the actions that happened that day, we averted a huge terrorist attack.
Yeah. So please continue. Like they were drumming and everything like that. I didn't want to.
We were just enjoying it. And this is what, not every instructor was doing this. And there were many instructors that were angry with the Arabs. They were just angry because of 9/11, and they would mistreat everyone. They would label everyone as a terrorist.
Wow.
And regrettably, that still happens today. Is that we label people, hey, there's a drunk, they're no good for nothing. There's a prostitute. We give them these labels. We give people labels. You're this religion, you're that religion. I'm posting a label on you. You're not an individual. You're a part of this group. And I'm an advocate in tearing those labels down and looking at the person. This is what I was doing in the classroom. So my classroom, we were all friendly. I actually felt like Michael Jackson. I'll tell you why. Michael Jackson was really popular, right? And whenever I stepped out of my classroom, half of the cadets from my classroom were waiting for me outside, wanting me to sign their notebooks. I felt like a celebrity. They couldn't get enough of me. And it was because of the way that I treated them. And they would tell me I was in such and such a class, and they yelled at us, they screamed at us, they made us do push-ups. They're not nice to us. Mr. Paul, they called me Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul, the other instructors are not like you. The other instructors make us feel bad. The other instructors, they judge us. And it wasn't that way in my classroom, which is why I felt, that they really connected with me and we had this rapport. As it turns out, while I was there, weeks went by, and every 2 weeks I would get a new set of cadets. And in many instances, a cadet would walk in on the first day with 2 bodyguards. And because they came from a particular tribe and their status was quite high, and they had a surrounding and bodyguards and to take care of them. You could tell. They walked in and they had 2 guys that would pull the chair out for them and just sit beside them and protect them. And one guy walked in, he had 1 bodyguard, and he sat in the classroom, and I did what I always do, welcomed the cadets, started doing the singing. He would just sit there, kind of look at me, taking it all in. He'd leave, wouldn't say a word, wouldn't participate in the class. Took about 2-3 days, and I had him for 2 weeks. About 2-3 days went by, and he waited after class. Everybody left, and he waited after class, and he spoke English very nicely. And he said, Mr. Paul, I'd like to ask you a few questions. And his bodyguard was there, and he tells his bodyguard, step out. He and I would have coffee, and he would ask me my thoughts on the war, where I came from, all these things. We had pleasant conversations day after day. He would make coffee and we would have these conversations. Then after 2 weeks, he was gone, but we had developed this somewhat friendship. I could say, hey, do you mind if I stay for a coffee and a chat? Nope, don't mind at all. It was the end of the day. All he had to do was go back to his bunk area and change and go for dinner, but he spent some time with me. Now, a few weeks after I had him in my classroom, it wasn't a promotion. I applied to become an advocate and counselor, and it was a very sought after position. My job would be to help the cadets, to counsel them. We had many sad cadets. We had many cadets who were suicidal. We had many cadets that were suffering from mental illness even. And as a advocate and counselor, I would help counsel them and make decisions as to whether or not their mental well-being would allow them to stay or whether they had to be repatriated for their own well-being. And that was part of my duties. I would advocate for better food conditions, for safer conditions, because there were some violent incidents happening in this academy. Men, 8 weeks, from various backgrounds. We had doctors, we had lawyers, we had coffee makers, we had everything. So imagine this. And I became this advocate and counselor. And a couple of weeks after that, one cadet came in and he said to me, he says, Mr. Paul, he says, there's going to be an attack on the academy from the inside. And there are going to be killings. Internationals are going to be killed. And I know this is going to happen. And so he had come to me a few times because he just needed to be heard. He was lonely, and he would come, do you have a moment, Mr. Paul? Yeah. So he brought this information to me, and I brought it to our security council and our security division. And they said, yeah, we heard something about this, so we're going to put everybody on high alert. And when you're at war or when you're on a peacekeeping mission, just because there's an imminent threat, it's not like you can say, hey, you know what, I'm going home. I'm going home. Hey guys, it's getting a little bit too hot in here. I'll see you later. No, you're there. And to your point a little bit earlier, like, what do you do when you're faced with this kind of thing? How do you regulate yourself? And you just get into that mental state. Okay, high alert. That's even more so than I was yesterday. And it's like, okay, what can I control right now? I can control what I do, can control where I go, can control this, control that. Now, we didn't like international instructors didn't stay at the academy at night. We drove in from Amman to the desert, an hour and a half drive into the desert to the academy, where there was a gate with all kinds of guards and weapons at the front because they were looking for bombs. They were looking for everything. We were also afraid that we were going to get attacked from the outside, a missile. Imagine this, like 3,000 young and older cadets, police cadets, and dozens of international instructors, like in one spot. You would be expecting the missile to be launched in there and terrorists to say, guess what we did? And that's what we were concerned about, that the canteen that housed, 3,000 a day, would be blown up, that kind of thing, that there might, cadets, they weren't armed, obviously, but we had to be on high lookout. So after I got this information,
even if they were armed, like, you can't shoot the missile down. So
no, you can't shoot the missile down. That's right. It's like, you hear that? You hear that whistling sound? Yep. Oh God, I think I'm going home. Like whatever that may be is like, we'll see you later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a few days later, my partner, I had a Finnish partner who worked with me in the advocacy and counseling division, man by the name of Yadamo. He's still a very good friend of mine. This was back in 2005, and we're still in touch. He's just that kind of a great guy. And he and I would arrive before the other instructors because our job, again, we were working in the advocacy and counseling division. Our job was to go see the director before the beginning of the day with a number of reports and recommendations for cadets that needed to be sent back home, in our opinion. And I would go to the director with Yadamo and say, well, we met with cadet, so and so, and he's suffering from mental illness, and his instructors have said X, Y, and Z. Here's my report, and this is why he must go back. He's not going to survive here. He's suicidal, or he's sick, or whatever it is. There were a number of reasons. So we would go see the director in the morning with our reports, and this is before any of the international instructors would arrive on the academy grounds. And on one morning, this is about 3 or 4 days after that threat was made, and I was alerted to that threat, Yarmo and I were walking back from the director's office through the desert to our building, and the sun was just coming up. And from behind one of the buildings, there were about 40 cadets, 40 insurgents, terrorists, and their followers that were armed with rocks and sticks, and they ran and they circled us. And, the hooting and hollering, and we knew exactly what was going to happen. Now, again, they didn't have guns, but they had rocks and they had sticks, and their job was to kill us. And I remember in that moment,
like 40 of them?
About 40 of them, man. They surrounded us. They were like, and they started to push in.
These were all like cadets.
These were all cadets. Again, wearing
That's a lot of terrorists that like got through.
These were the terrorists that got through. These were the terrorists that got through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they obviously they weren't allowed to have a phone on the premise, right? But some of them had managed to smuggle a phone, and they were getting their instructions through these correspondences. And their orders were, today's the day.
Wow.
And they picked this time to come out. And I'll get to an important factor in just a moment. But when they had surrounded us, Raj, we knew that our final moments were about to take place. Like, I knew that I was going to die. And my thoughts went to my 2 daughters. I have 2 young daughters, 14 and 16. And I was thinking, I'm never going to get to see my girls again. And my friend Yarmo, he was about a foot taller than me. And he looks down at me and he pats me on the head. Man, I can still see that moment right now when he's patting me on the head, and he looks at, I'm looking up at him, and he's looking down at me. And he says, "This is going to hurt, little buddy." I never forget those words, man. "This is going to hurt, little buddy." And I said, it sure is. And then a moment later, in we go to the crowd. We started fighting. They started hitting, and I started to lose consciousness.
Ooh.
But I heard one voice yelling, "Mr. Paul, Mr. Paul, Mr. Paul." From all this yelling and screaming, this hooting and hollering, because you can imagine these are cadets, and they're yelling in Arabic, and they're excited, and they're probably scared, and a whole bunch of things. But their intention is to beat us to death. And through all that noise, I heard Mr. Paul, Mr. Paul, Mr. Paul, and something being shouted in Arabic. And then it was almost like the parting of the Red Sea. Suddenly the assault stopped. The cadets moved away from us. And I was on the ground, my head spinning. And I'm trying to look to see what the hell's going on. And when I look, I see this one cadet walking through the crowd who had separated, like I said, like the Red Sea. And he's walking through, and he's got a smile on his face. And I'm looking at him, and he reaches his arm down to me with a big smile on his face. And he lifts me. He helps lift me up. It was the cadet who had coffee with me. And he was one of the terrorists. No freaking it. But he had such authority that he was able to stop the attack, which makes me think that he was high that others listened to him. So he's saving my life and my partner's life at the risk of his own, because he has to answer for not killing us. And I think that he paid for that gesture with his own life. He was arrested, repatriated, and I was approached by an Iraqi colonel who told me that his likeliness is that he was going back home to be killed by his cell.
Jesus.
When I look at that, man, I think to myself, had I not treated those cadets the way that I did, even when I think about the hostage takers or the people who were they were in crisis, about to commit suicide, and I was there as a negotiator to help them out. if I didn't treat them the way that I did, things would have turned out so differently and so uglier. I think this is true of each and every one of us, Raj, is that we can use the skills that I'm talking about, or even the compassion, the empathy, the approach of just treating others, like brothers and sisters. It kind of sounds a little bit corny, but boy, it's not. There's one race, the human race, and people tend to forget that, dude. That's my story, and that's going to be made into a movie. So if there's any great producers out there, directors who are interested, you reach me. Well, I've already got the script. It's a professional script. It's a great script, and there's a lot of interest in it. So yeah, and I did a TED Talk on that experience back in 2015, which is kind of cool too. So
wow,
that's my story, man.
What a story. Like, I was sitting here riveted the entire time, like, that's amazing. Like, and to it's to have that happen and then to walk away from it. Like, did they stop attacking everybody or just you two?
No, what happened that day is that when the attack stopped and my partner and I were allowed to leave, we booted it back to our building, like our advocacy and counseling building, picked up the phone and alerted the security. And we said, this is the day. The attackers are already out. We managed to get away with our lives. And so they said, hightail it out of here. The academy is shutting down. And so they shut down the academy. None of the instructors were allowed to come in that day. Everything was shut down. Everything was on high alert. And the cadets just went crazy. What ended up happening is that they ended up destroying the academy pretty much. They weren't going to kill anybody, but they started beating. They went after our security. They beat our security guys almost to death. There was just such chaos, but it was averted. There were no deaths that day. And other than, some bruises and some bloody noses and such, fortunately, nobody was killed, but there was an awful lot of damage done to that academy that day. And we weren't allowed back for a few days until things settled and until things got back to somewhat normal. And boy, it was a wake-up call too, is that you're like, man, this is but I still think today is that there's not too many people, who might be able to say that they were saved by a terrorist. And it comes back to the labels too. Like,
not only were you saved by a terrorist, but he essentially gave his life for you.
Precisely. And, when we think about this, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but when we think about this, is that, not all terrorists want to be terrorists. Many of them don't want to be terrorists. Some of them are recruited and told that if they don't become a terrorist, their families will be slaughtered. And that happens. And some of them do it out of desperation. Some of them do it out of, just a need to feel belonged or accepted, and belong to something. There are many reasons why people become drunks. There are many reasons why people turn to prostitution. There's many reasons why criminals become criminals. There's many reasons why people become terrorists or whatever. Boy, oh boy, there's a lot of reason out there for us to take a moment to ask for people's stories, because everybody's got a story.
Yeah,
and that's one of my.
I'm glad I asked for your story.
Yeah. Don't ask for my story. I tend to talk a little bit too much. So let's not talk about.
No, that was a great story. I really hope that gets turned into like some kind of movie or something. Like,
we'll make it happen, man.
Yeah. Or even a miniseries. That sounds like miniseries quality, like, as well.
I think it's going to be a feature film as opposed to a miniseries. I thought about a miniseries, and a couple of the people that are really attracted to this script say, no, I think it's a feature film. So we'll see.
That's amazing. I can't wait to see it in theater. Yeah. How do you, obviously there was a lot to download in that. And there was like, I really get that message of like showing compassion and like taking off the labels. Like, I'm sure the people that got beaten that day were probably the ones that were assholes to the, to the cadets throughout the day, right? Like, and the ones that showed the compassion and that were nice and whatnot, like yourself, were the ones that like got away, like, you know, and I'm sure like by association, your partner as well got away from this situation. Well, what was, and was he like also like in the same category as you in terms of like somebody that was compassionate towards them?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. One of the kindest and nicest men I've ever met. And the ones that were beaten were the ones that were on the academy grounds already, the security division, that kind of thing. The international instructors were not allowed on the academy grounds that day because we
Well,
put
you
a
were the
stop
only
to
two
that.
that were there.
We were the only two.
Oh, okay.
It was about 7 o'clock in the morning because we had to get there at 6. The instructors would arrive around 7:30 in the morning to open their classes at 8. So I remember when I was an instructor, we would drive in and we'd get to the academy around 7:30 and go to our classes, make our coffee, and get ready for the day for our students. But no, it was about 7 o'clock in the morning when all this went down. So none of the internationals were there, and so there were many police cadets that were also severely beaten by the terrorists for not being part of the terrorist group.
Right.
And, you know, I could go into so many stories about this academy, and I hope to bring out many of them in the movie and show the underside of that, because there's some pretty ugly stuff that
I
can
bet.
come
Yeah, I've
out.
heard stories of like, you know, like how they treat these people and stuff over there, and like they treat them like animals, even if they're on your side, like
Yeah.
lesser class citizens almost, you know. And
Yeah. What I want to bring out in this movie, my friend, is the message of treating each other with dignity and respect, and not labeling. There's a real message in the film that I'm hoping that when viewers leave the theater or at home, wherever they may be seeing it, they're going to go, you know what? I'm going to start treating people better. I'm going to start
Mhm.
asking for people's stories and not judging them, you know, so easily. And this is the problem, is that a lot of people judge. Let's take a look at the conflict around the world right now. We've got a war going on, and we've got
Multiple.
trouble in the streets. We've got demonstrations in the streets. We've got people who are siding with Hamas and terrorists, and they're forgetting what the violence, the terrible. I'm not going to get into this. I don't want to get into this or speak about either side, but there is such division. And I'm hoping that my message will help to soften or to at least tear some people away from that division. And maybe we can start, you know, a whole new way of looking at life for some people, right? Yeah.
Now, obviously, that's like an extreme situation that you were in and stuff like that. But like, and then like in general, just like with hostage negotiations, it's a kind of like high stress, stressful situation and so forth. But like, how does somebody take something like that and apply it to like the corporate world, to the business world, to the sales world, to the any kind of influence world?
These are all great questions, and I have some great answers. I'm hoping that you'll see it too.
Mm-hmm.
What does a hostage negotiator first say? My name is Paul. I'm here to help. What does a good negotiator say in a business? Hey, hi, I'm Paul, and I want to get to know everybody here at the table, and we're looking to, you know, to agree on something. We've come together with the intention of agreeing on something. Let's work together to see how we can bring this to a great conclusion. And he doesn't have to say, or she doesn't have to say, I'm here to treat you with dignity and respect. They don't have to say that as a salesperson or whatever, but you do it. You just like, what is it that you're looking to solve? You know, how can I help you to get what it is that you're after? Not here to sell you anything. You don't even say that, but you don't. You're not looking to make the sale. You're looking to provide a service. I have a good friend, Chris Doe. He was on Clubhouse too. And Chris is big businessman and a great negotiator himself. And I don't know if he created this acronym or if he just applied it, but he taught me this acronym. It's called the SALES acronym. When you think about it, the SALES, the S stands for servitude. If we are in the corporate world, if we are in the business world, if we are teachers, if we are whatever we are, we should have the mentality of serving others. I'm here to help. I'm here to relieve you from the pain points that you have. It's like going to a doctor. Good doctor just doesn't write a prescription. Hey, I've got a sore back. Well, here's a prescription for pills. There you go. No, a good doctor will take his or her time to say, well, when did you first start experiencing this? How bad is it? Where's the pain exactly? And this is what we do in sales and negotiations. We ask these exploratory questions so that we can come up with a solution that fits the needs of our client. So sales starts off with servitude. The A is for asking these open-ended questions, like asking these exploratory questions. What is it you're going through? Think about maybe even a conflict that you might have with a loved one, someone in your family. Maybe there's been an argument. Maybe it's your significant other, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. If you were to ask questions like, how are you feeling? What is it you're going through? What are you experiencing? Without judging or without having the ego come in, if you're asking to understand. Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand and then to be understood. And this is so true, is that once I understand, I can then implement things to help you. So S, servitude. A, ask open-ended questions. L, listen. Listen. Listen not only with your ears, but listen with your eyes. Your eyes will see the body language. Your eyes will watch the reaction to what it is that's being said. Not only your ears. Listen, listen, listen intensely. Like I call it listening with the soul, listening for the purpose of understanding. E is for something that you brought up earlier, my friend. You brought up empathy. So empathize. Empathize, even if you're in the negotiation and you're negotiating a big deal, empathize. Put yourself in the shoes of the other people. Maybe these people at the table, they have a story. Maybe they don't want to be there. Maybe their business is about to go under and they're hoping that you'll give them a lifeline. They're looking for help. They're there because they agreed to be there. So empathize, ask these questions. And the S at the end of the sales is for summarizing. And this is something that I used to do so much in my negotiations with hostages and even when I was interrogating a criminal, and I would summarize. So John, if I get you right, if I understand what you're saying, what you're telling me is X, Y, and Z. And that the reason that you did this was because, did I get that right? And when you summarize it, even in sales and negotiations, so if I get what you're struggling with or what your needs are, you're looking to solve this thing in your company. And what you're looking for is this coaching or this whatever. And the person that you're looking to have do this has to be qualified in X, Y, and Z. And yeah, that's it. And people love that, man. When everybody wants, we're social creatures since the beginning of time. We were in these little tribes and we had to be part of a community, because if we weren't, way back in the beginning of time when there were dinosaurs and all kinds of eating, like these animals that would eat you, you had to be part of a tribe because everybody had something to do in order to keep the tribe safe. We had people, many times it was the women who would gather the food, and they would know the poisonous berries from the non-poisonous, and they would prepare the meals, and the men would go out and they would hunt, and there were others that would do something else, but we all depended on one another, and it was so important to get along. Everybody wanted to get along and needed to get along because our lives depended on it way back when. Well, nothing has really changed. We all depend on each other, even today. And the idea, and the reason I bring that up, is that during a negotiation, is that when we work as a community, when we work as a group, as a team, to make sure that everybody is taken care of and that we listen to each other, we all have that need to be heard and understood. It's in us since the beginning of time. We needed to be heard and understood and appreciated in order to be part of the team. Because if nobody listened to us or heard us or kicked us out, we were on our own. And it's the same. Everybody wants to be heard and understood. And we need to take that time to hear them and to ask them and to summarize everything. So those are a few of my thoughts. That's how you do it, is like
No, go ahead, finish.
No, please. Go.
Now, how do you take that and push back on them. Like, let's say like they have a budget of XYZ and but you have another number in your head. You've created empathy, you've listened to what their needs are, you've built the rapport, everything like that. But you have your own agenda that you almost want to like meet them, and like, like Chris Voss says, never split the difference kind of thing. Like, it's like, how do you close that gap then to like take it to the next level?
You have to walk in again. One of the big things about negotiations or anything is to be prepared, to understand what your bottom line is, to prepare so much so that you'll understand what some of the objections will be, or maybe you will be prepared. You may have role played. I might have a big negotiation going on next week, and I'll call you. Hey, Raj, I have a big negotiation going on with Google, and I'm gonna be right there. And so I want you to play the role of of one of the members in the negotiation. You ask me all kinds of questions, or you give me some hard things, and you and I will role play this, and then we'll switch roles and we'll get ready. So it's preparation. What is my bottom line? What am I ready to deal with? Like, am I going to go below? Like, my bottom line is $1 million. If they don't reach $1 million, I can't do it. And this is where negotiation comes in. They're going to give you a reason why they can't. We can only do 900,000. This is all we can do, man. We can't go up any further. And this is where the negotiation comes in. You already have it in your mind that there is no way. And then you have to tell them why. There's no way that I can possibly do that. How could I even do that? If I went down to $900,000, I have to consider what this means to my business and to, my expectations and such. And this is where the negotiation comes in. It's really asking, how can I do that? Like, and just being square and being ready to walk away. Many viewers might not be familiar with a former singer. It was a country and western singer, Kenny Rogers, who had a song, The Gambler. No one to walk away. No one to run. I was just listening
to that song, actually.
Isn't it amazing? And it's true in negotiations, no one to walk away. And, for me, when I was in a negotiation with a hostage taker, and they'd say, well, I want a plane, I want this, I want that. Again, that's undoable. You can't do that. You can't. It's non-doable, not undoable. It's non-doable. And so I would be very open. John, that's something I just can't do. I can't give you a plane. What is it that I can do for you? What is it that we can work on together? And again, when you are talking about that, you know what your bottom line is, and they're not reaching it. And, and if emotions get high, and I talk about this in my book as well, is that in some negotiations, you have to have a few rules already in place, like a very emotional, maybe it's a divorce negotiation or something like that. You're going to have certain conduct rules ahead of time. Is that, hey, we're going for a negotiation in a week, and these are the rules to abide by. Be respectful, be this, be that. But in a normal negotiation where the rules aren't on the table, but if somebody's getting heated and saying, I just can't do that, I can't do that, we have to call them on it. Hey, wait a minute. We're all here because we gathered together because there was some possibility of reaching an agreement. And now we're at this impasse. And what is it that we can agree on? Or can we agree on this? Let's work this out. Tell me why it is that you can't do X, Y, and Z. Or this is where the real nitty gritty of the negotiation comes in. One thing too is that, and I will teach. I teach this in my talks. I'm a keynote speaker, and I teach this in my talks. Is that whenever possible, when you're getting together for negotiation, don't get right into the negotiation. Take 5 or 10 minutes to sit and to build rapport with the people across from you, to find out who they are, to talk about the game, talk about the weather, talk about music, that you have something that you may have in common. Get to know the person. When we see children laughing and playing in the park, they're enjoying each other's company and just having fun. And not that I'm suggesting that you have fun, but be normal, be human. Like, hey, Raj, look, really nice to meet you. So why don't you tell me a little bit? Do you live in town here? Well, like, how long have you been doing this? It's just getting to know each other. This was not my recommendation, but somebody said this. I think it was during Clubhouse. It was in the negotiation room. Yes, it was. And one of our team members in the negotiation room, she said, if you can have dinner with the people you'll be negotiating with tomorrow, wow, will your negotiation ever turn out differently? And it's so true, because people, they want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. And one of the ways that we do that is by taking a few minutes before getting into the negotiation to develop a rapport, to get to know who it is that's behind. And it's not hard. It doesn't have to take long. There are some negotiations where you just can't. I couldn't get to know the terrorist. I couldn't get to know the hostage taker. Hey, how are you? I just want to take a few minutes to tell you a little bit about myself. It's like, no. And I blow. So some negotiations you have to go right in and get to business, but later on you can develop that rapport, which is so important. Building rapport, building trust. Again, people want to deal with people they know, like, and trust. Maybe you're $100,000 more expensive than Joe down the street, but if your client, your customer, sees the value in you, and they know you, like you, and trust you, and they've got the beans to pay for it, they'll probably say, you know what, Raj is the guy I want to deal with. Why? Because I trust the guy. He's never let me down. I like the guy. It took a few minutes to get to know me, not too many. He was honest with me. He said no when he couldn't deliver. I like this guy. And I know when I was researching my book on sales and negotiations, I used to go we had this electronics store in Canada called the Future Shop. And in my neighborhood way back when, I used to go into the Future Shop because I like toys and electronics and that kind of stuff. And there was one guy, a Middle Eastern salesperson. And when I walked in, his name is Sam. He never pressured me. Always came out to just say, hello, how are you? And what is it they're looking for? And how can I help? And, and he wouldn't stick around. He just went on and did his own stuff. And when I spoke to him, he was always pleasant. And I liked him. I liked it so much so, just going in and dealing with him. I bought something that I thought I was not going to buy. It was a little bit more than what I wanted, but he never made me feel pressured to buy. And I liked him, and I bought the product, and I went back to him whenever I was looking to buy something else. I wouldn't look for anybody else. I looked for him, even if the price was going to be a little bit more, because I knew that if I had a problem with it, I could go back and Sam would take care of me, because that's the impression that he gave me. And again, this comes down to our sales. This comes down to our negotiations, the impression we make on someone, what we deliver, the service that we give, the empathy that we use, the honesty that we use are all tools that we can bring into our sales and negotiation world and make it work. And sometimes, to get to your point, we have to walk away from the table. Is that this is not possible for me. And this is why I also write and teach in my book, is that don't need the deal. Don't go in there wanting the deal. Go in there to make the deal. You don't want it. You don't need it. But you're going to make it happen if you can. So don't have the mindset of, I'm getting this deal no matter what. Be of the mindset that I'm going to work with what I have in the moment. I'm not going to focus on the outcome. I'm going to focus on the process. I'm going to focus on engaging. I'm going to focus on all this stuff. It's like a professional basketball player or hockey player or whatever, soccer player, is that they don't go in to play the game thinking that they're going to win the game. They don't think about that. They don't focus on winning the game. They focus on playing the game. They practice for hours getting ready and preparing and developing their techniques and their talents and how they're going to do this and how they're going to do that. They play the scenarios, and they don't go in saying, we're going to win the game. No, they have that in their mind, sure. But then when they're playing the game, they're not thinking about winning the game. because if they do, they're going to lose sight of what's in front of them. That ball, that puck, that whatever just hit me. And, you know, I'm not thinking about winning the game. I'm thinking about playing the game. And that's where a lot of us focus on the outcome. Never. Yeah. Dream about the outcome. This is what I would like. This is what I'm ready for. This is what I'm planning. But I am focusing on what it is that I can control. Right now, I can control this moment, or I can control what I'm about to say, what I'm about to propose, what I'm about to ask. And that, I think, are keys to successful sales and negotiations in anybody's life, man.
That's wonderful. That's like, yeah, that was a great download. There's
This is what I go around the world talking about this thing, and yeah, I speak on this on big stages, and I just love delivering it because
you're very passionate about it. I can see, yeah.
I am, and my passion rubs off on other people.
Yeah,
and by the end of my talks, I always have a lineup. Dozens of people are lining up to say that was really great, and and so many times, Raj, they say to me, "You reminded me that my customer is someone I must value and someone I must serve. I forgot that." It all came somewhere over the years. I started focusing on me and not we. And so my philosophy, Chris Voss has tactical empathy. Never split the difference. Tactical. Mine is we, not me. It is about working with others so that we end up both reaping the benefits of whatever it is that we're doing, man. That's my philosophy.
Dude, I love that so much. Like you've dropped so much value today in this, like having this download with you. Like even my own life, I'm like seeing like how can I adapt and like use some of the techniques that you're saying today, and like what do I need to polish up on, and like, you know, because like you were talking about like with the athletes and stuff like that, right? Like it's not something you just develop overnight. I mean, it can be, but like you have to put in the hours into mastery. You have to put in the muscle memory into it and continuously stretch it. And especially for people that are listening that are probably more like introverted, that are not somebody that like is a public speaking person per se. Like I see that as like, because I was somebody like that, right? Like I remember when I was a kid, I was like probably like about like 14 years old, and I had to represent my school in all of the local schools around the area and deliver like a 3,000 person speech about some health topic or something like that, as like whatever the school decided to do. And nobody in our group, is probably like about 10 of us from my school that went up there. Everybody was shy. Nobody wanted to go up on stage and talk. And I as well, but I was like, you know, I picked up this kind of leadership in me that I was like, I'm going to go do it regardless, you know, and I get up there and I freeze. And I was like, screw this. And I hit the microphone and I walked away. Like literally I said that. And like, you know, what was interesting is like, I got like, you could tell the people that were like judging us, like, you know, from the education board, wherever it was, like they got a little mad, but the entire auditorium of all of the students got into uproar, and I got a standing ovation from everybody in there, because like, and it was almost like, you know, like everybody in that room was kind of feeling the same way, because you're kids, you're like, you know, you don't know any better, like, you know, you don't want to be up here talking about it. And I think the topic was like about like the science behind AIDS or something like that, and it was like nobody wants to talk about that as a 14-year-old kid, like, you know, but like, and it was like so crazy. So like I was very much on the opposite end of this thing. And I literally was like, use that as like a pivotal moment in my life to be like, let me build this muscle. And from that experience to fast forwarding, I ended up talking on stages at Tony Robbins events with like 5,000 people and stuff like that, at like his business conferences. I've like gone out and talked to like large audiences. I've given keynote speeches myself, and like, and it all comes back to that muscle memory. And like, one of the things that I pride myself in is like likability. You talk about like being liked, and it's literally about rapport building and being able to empathize and show the human side of things. And it doesn't necessarily mean you come off super professional in that way, but if you also can empathize with the people and the audience that you're talking to, you can kind of like close the gap and like make the difference. I wanted to ask you, is there like some leading questions that you would have at the beginning, probably the middle, and then the closing questions that you like that you use?
Every situation is going to be different, but as a rule of thumb, is that when somebody's coming to you, there is something that they're wanting or needing, and it's your job to ask what it is. What is it that you're looking to solve? What is it that you're struggling with? How can I help you to get the results that you're looking for? And then you have to break it down. Like some clients don't even know what it is that they're looking for. They don't. And they're hoping that you're going to give them a solution, but you can't give them a solution unless you know what the problem is. It's like my earlier story when I talked about the good doctor.
Mhm.
The good doctor asks questions like, when did it start? What's your pain point? In my book, I have several questions that we ask to get the information out. But to give your audience right now, to each and every one of you listeners, just start by being curious. Like a good salesperson, a good negotiator is a curious person. It's like a detective. You become a detective, and the detective doesn't reach a conclusion based on just a couple of things. He or she has to gather the information in order to make the case, to get as much information as they can. So one of the leading questions is, how can I help? What is it that you're struggling with? What is it that you're looking to solve? What is it you're looking to buy? Like, do you have anything? Have you seen anybody? Is there something that you've seen, like in sales? Is there something that you're attracted to? And tell me why, why are you attracted to that brand? What is it about that brand or that particular X, Y, and Z that you like? And what's your budget? Have you been anywhere else, talking to anybody? Is there anything that you have in your mind that you would like to ask about this product or whatever? And so it is those inquisitive kind of things, like you're not trying to make the sale, you're trying to make the person understand what it is that they're after. And in doing so, they are naturally drawn to you because you're not the high pressure salesperson. And there's that rapport that develops that this person really cares. In our own personal lives, when we have people that we know, we can think of people right now who really care about you. And when they say, how are you doing? It's not just, hey, how are you doing? They really care. And we know, and we're drawn to them, and we like talking to them because they make us feel good. That's your job. And one of the ways in which you accomplish that is by asking questions, by showing genuine interest, by even making small talk, but by even making small talk. And I use this, and I teach this too. There's another electronics store here in Canada, and I was looking for a laptop. And I was looking for a laptop and a couple of other items. And I'm a negotiator. Look for opportunities. I create opportunities. I do it. I know how to do these things. So I walked into this electronics store, and I see the salesperson there, and I'm chatting with him. And I'm not asking about the product just yet. Just, how's your day going? How long have you been here? I've seen you a couple of times in this store. I just little chatting about this and that. And, oh man, have I ever had a day? He says, tell me a little bit about your day. And so we're just chatting. He says, well, what are you looking for? I said, I'm looking for a laptop and looking for this, looking for that. And so he helps me. And all the while he's helping me, I'm just having a conversation with the guy. And there's another couple, and they're looking at the same laptop with another salesperson, but they're strictly business. I'm business and pleasure, business and conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes down to, this is the one I want. This is this is a really good laptop. I like it. And you've sold me on it. And hey, is there any way that you could give me a little bit of a break on this? Is there any way that I could get a little discount on this? Yeah, Paul, Let me just check my computer. I got it for $600 less
Wow.
by asking that question. My book is called Damn It, Just Ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. You always miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. But by building that conversation with him, by talking to him and by saying, is there any way that you can give me a break? That's $600 off the laptop. And I think another $40 off whatever gadget I had to go along with it. And the other couple, they paid full price. So the lesson here is converse, speak, show interest with people. You walk into a shop. Hey, what a beautiful shop. Do you own this place? Yeah. How long have you had it? Really like the stuff that you have in it. This is great. Love it. And how many years have you been here? It's just showing that interest, and people like to talk about themselves. Yeah, it's my business, and yeah, I like it. And I go all over the world and I buy this and I buy that and I buy this and it's great. Wow, good. And then I'm looking around. This mug, by the way, is the mug that my daughter gave me, but let's use this as an example.
What does it say on it?
It says Inspector Clouseau, but it's worn off, you see?
Okay. Yeah.
But I'll use this as an example. And this is my favorite mug. She gave it to me. She made it with her own hands. And I'm thinking, oh, this is so beautiful. That's nice. So if I go into that shop and I've asked the shopkeeper about everything, and I come and I say, I really like this mug. Yeah, this is really nice. Hey, do you think you could give me a little discount on this? Sure, I can give you a few bucks off that. And it works all the time. They're not losing any money. They might be losing a little bit, but they've gained a client, they've gained a customer, they've gained a friend, whatever it is. And if you don't ask for these opportunities or these concessions or whatever it is, you won't get. And it really is about, again, and this applies to dating, man. It applies to, you don't hard ask a person for a date. You see somebody is attractive and you go, hey, want to go on a date with me? Usually it's going to be, no, I don't even know you. You're a stranger. Get away. But if you have a 5 or 10 minute conversation, you say, hey, would you like to go for a coffee? Well, there's a connection that's been made, and I often refer to negotiations and sales as dating. We plan on where to take the person, we show interest in the person. When we get together with the person on the date, we ask questions because we want to see if we're a match. It's the same in a negotiation. We ask questions. Why? We want to see if what we have is of value to them and what they have is the value to us. It's like a dating thing. It's like you show interest. If it's all about you, it's like, hey, come on in. You know what? I'm glad you got together with this negotiation because I got everything you want. I am your answer. You don't have to go anyplace else. Let's just sign on the dotted line. I'll deliver. And you're thinking, who is this jerk? Like he doesn't even know what I'm looking for. And it's the same if you walked in on that date and you said, oh, it's okay, ma'am, miss, I like you. I think you're cute and I want to see you again. You don't have to be on any dating site. I'm your answer. I'm so good. Look at me. Look, I keep it fit. I got some money. And she's going to go, oh my God, where's the exit? And so when you compare your negotiations to your sales of that, can't make it all about you. You got to make it about the other person. Got to show genuine interest. Are we a match? Ask this when you're going in. You asked me for questions earlier. What are some of the questions you might ask? In the back of your mind, ask yourself, is this a match for me? This negotiation, do I have what they need? Can I deliver what they need? Do they have what I need? Can they deliver what I need? Would I like to spend X number of months with them in this business deal? Are they somebody I can trust? These are all questions you need to satisfy yourself in these sales and negotiations, is that you're looking at, compared to a date. You plan for the date. Your intent is focused on the other person and learning and discovering as much about the other person to see if you want to ask that person out on a second date. And in the case of a negotiation, whether you want to sign on the dotted line with this person, if they are a match for you, and you want to build a relationship. You want to keep them engaged, and that's what it comes down to, man. It comes down to exploring and asking questions, being curious, and reaching solutions that work for everyone. And everybody leaves happy, man. It's again, my philosophy is we, not me, man. It's really about, are we a match? Are you going to be happy with what I give you? You're going to be happy by getting into a contract with me or buying something from me, or, or have I solved your conflict? Like as a hostage negotiator, I want to get you out alive. My job is to get you out alive. Don't worry, nobody's going to shoot you. And one of the number one things that hostage takers fear when they agree with me, when they start to think, I want to come out, and I say, well, what is it? I ask that question. What is it you're worried about, John? There's something that you're not telling me. You're almost there, but you're not there. What is it you're worried about? Paul, I'm worried that when I step out of this place, there's a sniper. They're going to shoot me. Thanks for telling me that, John. You have my word. I am in touch with them. They will not hurt you. They will not shoot you. We have to do that in negotiations too. What is it that you're worried about? Is there something that you're concerned about before we move forward? Tell me everything that you're worried about. I will answer every one of your questions. Again, it's building that trust, my friend. It's building that trust. And once you do that, it's magic. And maybe you don't get the sale, but they'll come back to you. They'll come back to you. And it is about building that rapport and that relationship. I'm a true believer in that.
Beautiful, dude. Like that was like that. This whole conversation has been like a masterclass, and in everything. It's from everything from small talk to negotiations to building rapport to and then on top of that we had your entire terrorist story in the middle of all of that too, which was just fantastic. I really hope that gets greenlit for a movie, because I can't wait to watch it in theaters on screen. I know we're past time. We're in overtime right now, but this conversation has been so riveting that I could continue this, but I want to pause here and thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This has been really amazing to have this download. How can people get in touch? What do you got going on? Any kind of way to learn your stuff? You talked about your books. How can people find your books? How can people be in touch? Tell us what's going on in your world.
Well, thank you. Well, pretty easy to find me. Just either type Paul Nadeau on Google or J. Paul Nadeau on Google, and I come up in many instances. Talking about my books, my website is pretty easy to remember. It's jpaulnadeau.com. So if you go to jpaulnadeau.com, you'll find me there. Sorry?
The letter J?
Yeah, the letter J is my name is Jean-Paul.
Okay.
And so the J before Paul, PaulNadeau.com. So jpaulnadeau.com. My books are online. They're sold on Amazon. Many of them, my first book, which was published by HarperCollins worldwide, is available in some stores and online as well. My book, I'm rewriting, or no, I shouldn't say rewriting. I'm adding more content to my book called Damn It, Just Ask, the one that we've been talking about, the one that I've been referring to. A lot of the things that I'm telling you in this podcast, in this download, is really from my book, where I teach people the PEER acronym that I developed for successful negotiations. And so those are things I'm doing. Keeping busy, my friend. And, it's just been great. And I really appreciate you. And to everyone listening, I hope that you've gathered a lot from this, because it really isn't difficult. But like anything, it takes training to master something. And the way in which you master is that you commit to applying the techniques that you learn. You don't just think about it, you act it out. You keep developing that muscle. You go to people, you call somebody up, you role play, you memorize, you do all kinds of things, but be human. And remember those two lessons. We are more similar than we are different. So put yourself in your client's shoes. You get what you give. So give your client something that's great. Give them the best you, and you will succeed. Those are my lessons.
Dude, amazing. Thank you so much again. For those listening, go check him out and buy the book. I hope you've been taking notes throughout this entire thing. I wish I could have taken notes throughout this. I'm probably going to go back and brush up on some of the stuff you're saying as well too, and take notes from this, because this is just, like I said, this has been a complete masterclass download from end to end on what to do. And so go check him out online. And I'd love to hear comments and suggestions and anything like that. People can submit and come back in, and like, I'd love to hear your feedback from everything and how this went. And Paul, I would love to have you back, and like, we can do some more of these, because this is like a whole series. And you and I talked before about some of the stuff, and like, we can dive deeper into that. But yeah, like, just total grateful and gratitude towards you, dude. Like, this has been amazing.
I ask you just one thing, that you give me a copy of this, that you send me the link so I can download it as well.
Yeah.
You're right about the masterclass. This is what I deliver on stages for large audiences, and I get paid a lot of money to do it, and I'm passionate about it. And everybody who goes to the talks ends up leaving, having had a masterclass and being able to apply it immediately, which I know that everyone listening, if you want to apply these principles, you can start today. And exactly. That's my challenge, that, I challenge you to take from this a few things that you can immediately apply in your life. And that's your call to action, is apply something from this moment on that you got from this talk. And if you're going to hashtag anything that has to do with negotiations, hashtag it, damn it, just ask. Because you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, and you don't get if you don't ask.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much again, Paul. This has been fantastic. For those listening, you know what to do. And yeah, we will see you guys on the next one.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another insightful episode. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and leave your comments. For more information, check out our website at www.inspireus.ca. Remember, it's not what happens to us that matters most. It's how we respond to what happens to us that does. Stay strong and resilient.